This episode of Comics for Fun and Profit is brought to you by Boom Studios, home of some awesome comics. Giant Days, Lumberjanes, Something is Killing the Children, Klaus, one of Kyle's favorites, Mouse Guard, The Woods. I'm a big fan of Guyborn, the Frank Cho book, Strange Fruit, the J.G. Jones thing. Oh man, that was cool. Of course, I'm a big fan of Fence as well. Wild's End, Grimm for a while, dug that. In anticipation of their 20th anniversary next year, Boom Studios is doing a 20 for 20 program with all their backlist great books being bundled into omnibus editions for $20. So if you missed any of those great books, you can check those out in your previews catalog. Make sure you pre-order those. That's a heck of a deal. Check out all their offerings at boomstudios.com.
Aloha! It's Jason from Hawaii. Welcome to a special edition of the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. In this episode, I will be interviewing actors, comic book creators, and friends of the podcast, Matt and John Yuan. They are here to promote Lovetown, the long take. It is from First Comics. Now, this one-shot special will be out in stores on October 16th. Matt and John, welcome back to the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. How are you guys doing today?
We're doing great. Thanks for having us.
Matt, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you again. It's always such a pleasure to be here.
Oh, thank you guys. Thank you very much. Okay, so listeners, I'm going to give you a little bit of the Yuan twins background. I told them please feel free to jump in, tell stories, or correct me. So, as actors, they have appeared in several movies such as comedies. Their breakout role, and I don't know how you guys didn't get Oscar nominations. Observe and Report. Now, this starred Seth Rogen, Anna Faris, and I didn't even know Ray Liotta was in this movie too. Were you guys able to?
Ray Liotta was really cool. He was a cool guy. Very, very professional.
Yes.
Offset, very cool, very nice. We were very saddened when he passed. That was not a cool day.
No, yeah.
He expected a certain level of professionalism from other people.
Yes.
And, when he got it, he treated you like a professional, no matter if it was someone like Seth Rogen, who had already been in several movies, or us, and we were like, it was, literally our first day on on a movie set. And, he was very, very professional. But then as the shoot went on, got to know him a little bit better, and really nice guy.
So cool. That's so cool that you guys met him. Now, the other comedy that you guys starred in, and listeners, this is a comedy, and I'm going to pronounce the title, and I know some people go, what? Okay, Larry Gay, Renegade Male Flight Attendant. Now, I saw the preview, the trailer last night. This movie came out about, I think, almost about 10 years ago, within the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And then also, the story is about, this guy is he's a flight attendant, but the whole story is that some airline was deciding to replace flight attendants with robots. And Rebecca Romaine plays the robot flight attendant that the whole line, I guess they're going to replace the male attendants with. Now, this starred, I'm going to try to pronounce the actor's name, Mark Feuerstein. He was in, I think, Caroline in the City. He played the boyfriend. I had to look that up a little bit. Henry Winkler, I remember you guys talked so highly about him. Stanley Tucci. This movie has an incredible cast. Do you guys want to talk a little bit more about the movie?
John, you go first.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'll tell you the one thing. It was a great experience, but what really, really, really depressed was that we didn't get to meet, I think 90% of the people who were in. I mean, like Stanley Tucci, Jason Alexander. You want to meet these people. You want to say and and our shooting schedules were just different. So that was the downside, if you could call it that. But it was amazing. Met some great people. It was a lot of fun. When we were filming it, we were 500 feet outside the allowable day travel zone for SAG, and so they had to get us a hotel, which was like really hilarious because they're like, "Are you certain this is your address?" We're like, "Yes." Why? we were an abnormally small amount outside that zone.
Across the street, the individual talking to us was like, "If you had lived across the street,
Yes.
you get every day." But what was at the first AD,
Yes.
we had worked with her years ago when we were still PAs on like these micro budget movies.
That's right. Yeah, you guys were PAs.
And she, like, we get on the set and we hear, "Hey guys," and we're like, "Huh?" We look around, we see our friend, and she's like, "Holy crap! It's been so long." And it was a great reunion, because we went from being PAs to being cast members,
Yes.
and she, first ADing a micro budget movie to Larry Gay, renegade male flight attendant. It was really nice to see that all of us had sort of come up,
Yes.
And her nickname Squirrel.
Oh yeah. So listen, I know you guys can't see this, but John is wearing a red T-shirt with a squirrel head on top. So is that a logo of?
No, to be fair, he's a beaver.
Oh, okay, sorry.
He has been taken for a squirrel, a chipmunk, and all sorts of. It's a Texas road stop chain called Bucky's, and that's Bucky the Beaver. But a similar animal with chewing proclivities. So, but yeah, the first AD's name, her nickname is Squirrel, and she's amazing. And yeah, it was a heck of a reunion. We're like, oh, heck. And it was a bit of a reunion with Patrick Warburton too.
Yes.
Our last day was his first night, I believe.
And
we passed him. Oh, hey, seeing you again, and it was kind of cool. It's like two reunions in one.
Because that's a perfect segue going into, you guys have done numerous TV shows, such as I remember seeing you guys the first time on Rules of Engagement, where Patrick played the main, he was the lead cast member in that show. That's right. You guys have also done Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Arrested Development, and it's just only to name a few of the shows that you guys have been in. I'm going to ask, do you guys want to add anything else, any other TV shows before I jump into your guys' comic book works?
I just want to talk a little bit about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yes.
I'll proceed this by saying everything that we have been in, we've been really blessed with meeting nothing but really great cast and crew. We have not met anyone that we would say this guy's a jerk or she's horrible or whatever. Everyone has been amazing. It's like you hear horror stories. We have been like dodge all of them because everyone we've worked with is great. But Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I would say, kind of equals the set of Observe and Report for how awesome everybody was. It's like, I mean,
nice.
Everyone, but those two were like awesome to up to 11. So all you Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fans out there, go ahead and meet your heroes. They are awesome people. They're fantastic. No complaints about them whatsoever.
Matt, what about you? Anything you want to add to that?
I mean, that's really about it. They really were from the second we stepped foot on set to the second we left. They really did their best to make us feel like we were part of the family. I mean, they'd all been working for 7 years.
Yes, that's right.
And us and the rest of the other guest stars show up, and we felt right at home. Like instantly, they were just like treating us like we were part of the gang. It was really, really great. And thank you to everyone who made that such a magical experience, because we're lifelong fans of Marvel. Agents of Shield
Mhm.
was our comfort shows.
Yes.
We're just like, it was a dream come true, and they really made it just super amazing.
That's pretty cool. That is so cool. All right. Excuse me, listener. Sorry. Okay, so I'm going to continue the Yuan twins. Now, before I start jumping into some of their comic book work, they had owned their own comic shop. I remember the first time I met you guys, interviewed you guys talked about you guys owned your own comic shop. That was pretty cool. You guys want to talk a little bit about that?
So it was Cool Cats, Comics and Cards, and it was in a very small space, so small that the address actually had a 1/2 tacked on to the end of it.
Yes.
Every time we gave out that address, people thought it was a joke. It sounds like like a Seinfeld gag.
Mhm.
Oh, 7.5. Wait, what? But it was great. The neighborhood was awesome. We met all sorts of people that we just never knew we would ever meet. A lot of kids of people we greatly admire. The director of The Road, I remember we were talking to his son,
The producer.
yeah, and the words, "Oh my God, that movie was horrific." Just
Yes.
sort of,
Mhm.
Yeah, I said it was awful, and he was like, "You didn't like it?" I was like, "No, it was hideously effective." I
Yes.
but you can't say you loved it because it's
Yeah.
like cannibalism and all sorts of just awful implications, and it's
There
like,
was like really no hope.
yeah, I mean, it was a great movie, but like I said, hideously effective. I'm not gonna say no. It was great. It's like, no, there's nothing, but it's like The Exorcist. How do you sit there and say, "Oh my God, that was so great"? It's like, no,
Yeah.
this is it scarred me mentally. So
but we also met Steve Stern. That's
Yes.
how we. So for you listeners out there, Steve Stern was the co-creator, original writer of Zen Intergalactic Ninja. And he walked into our store and he's like, "Hey, I know you guys. You were in that Rogan movie." And we're like, "Oh, thank you." And he talked about how much he liked it, but then he goes on to say, "Now you may not know this character, but I created Zen Intergalactic Ninja." And we were like, "Oh, you mean the one with the J League Chromium cover, the Mike Mignola cover? Paul Pelletier drew it. It was with Archie for a little bit." And he was a little taken aback that we knew the history of his character about as well as he did.
Yeah.
But that was because when Zen was at the height of his popularity, we were working at a comic book store in college. And so, yeah, we knew all about it. We sold tons of those chromium covers.
Yeah.
But as it turns out, at the time, we were working on our first self-published book, which was Declan and Tang. And
Yes.
um, he's like, "Oh, I didn't know you guys drew comic books." And we're like, "Yeah." And so he said, "I've got to introduce you to my boss, my publisher. You may know him. His name's Ken F. Levin, and since we don't live underneath a rock, we knew who he was." We were like, "Yeah, that would be great."
yeah, and the rest is history.
because Ken, he is the publisher of First Comics where you guys currently work. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And it's okay. And that's a perfect segue because you guys have created for First Comics, at least three comic book series that I know of. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. Inspector O, Serving Soups, and of course Love Town. And you guys, I think was back in 2022, are deputy publishers for First Comics. Is that
That
correct?
that is correct. Yeah.
All right.
We
Mhm.
became deputy publishers in 2022. And it's kind of cool. It's a lot of fun. We do a lot of the day-to-day administrative stuff. We do some editing. We look over submissions.
Oh, okay.
Scheduling for printing, distribution, stuff like that. Just a lot of like weird jack of all trades stuff. Of course, everything needs to be approved by Ken. Do not. It's funny. Some people will be like, "Oh yeah, I got this or I got that." Maybe you can. And it's like we can put in a good word, but we can't approve. That's ultimately Ken's call. Because as much experience as we have in that sort of stuff, he's way better at it than we are.
Without a doubt. And I know we're not alone in this opinion, but he is the best editor we have ever worked with. People who will agree with us. He's got a very sharp eye. He's got he doesn't let his own personal hang-ups or tastes.
Yes.
So even let's say if he doesn't like science fiction, right? Example, I know he certainly likes science fiction, but if someone turns in a science fiction story, he's going to look at it for what it is, what it's trying, and falls short within its own parameters. That's what he judges it on. He doesn't sit there and say, "I just don't like science fiction. Screw it." He looks at the project on its own merits. Now, of course, if someone says, "Well, I've got a sci-fi story about a farm boy, and he's got magical powers, and he meets an old man, and they destroy a space station," he's going to say,
"Yeah,
it's too much like Star Wars." But otherwise, he's really great at not rewriting it for you, which I think do, and it's a horrible habit.
But sounds like but Matt, like you were saying, Ken sound like, and John, like you guys say, he's a great editor. He puts his own personal, his own personal backgrounds or feelings aside, and he looks at the story to see, is this a good story? Is it something that's, it's told in a different way? And Matt, like you said, because if it's almost kind of sounding like a rehashed Star Wars story or a rehashed Star Trek story, it's kind of like, oh no, maybe not, but if it's something a little bit new, he'll look at it.
That's exactly it. His editor is he wants to publish the best books that nobody else is publishing.
Yes.
So he's always looking for new talent, new voices, and he's been doing that since the 80s.
Yes, yeah, because
so it's amazing.
Because I was gonna say, and we talk, and we're gonna talk a little bit about, if you guys could, get the history of First Comics, because I remember seeing in the stores back in the 80s, Warp, the science fiction comic book, and I remember picking that up, at least one or two issues, like back in the 80s, because I remember the logo. It was just and it was just pretty interesting. And he had I think the artist on that, it just slipped my mind. I forgot who the artist was. I want to say it was Frank Bruner. That's who it was. I think he drew either the covers or he did some of the interior works. But yeah.
So First Comics, just a brief history of it.
Yes.
Ken and a group of people were. Ken was a lawyer, and he was facilitating a lot of deals between the New York comic book industry and Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
So he was the only guy who knew everybody in this sort of weird, industry triangle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when it came to like creators from Marvel or DC, he realized, I'm not making deals on behalf of these people. I'm making deals on behalf of the corporations.
Yes.
The creators, Thanos or Iron Man or Spider-Man, they're not getting paid jack.
Mm-hmm.
He had a wild idea to have a publishing house where the creators owned their creation.
Yeah.
But he was the first person to do it, and it was such a novel idea that he actually had creators that he would bring on board to first, and he would tell them, "So, okay," and they were like, "Great, what do you want me to draw?"
Mm-hmm.
Like, you own it, you create it, you're the creator, and the creators just would almost panic. They had no idea what this meant to. Wait, I own what? You're creating. No, I can't. No, and they would just. A few of them went back to just go work for Marvel, but others, they were like, "Yeah, let's do this." And then you get American Flag, Grimjack, all sorts of great titles, and to this day, the creators still own it, right? Like,
Yeah.
the early '90s, First Comics was sold to a .com group. They didn't know what to do,
Mm-hmm.
and for several years, Ken was like, "Hey, you guys aren't doing anything with it. I'll buy it back."
Mm-hmm.
And back from the dot at about, I want to say 2010 or 11, we publishing again in 2012, and have been going strong ever since.
Oh, okay. John, do you want to add anything to that about the history?
Covered it pretty good, so no, I'm good.
Okay. But Matt, what you pointed out was, I forgot, that's right, American Flag by Howard Chaykin was through First Comics. That's right. Oh my God. And of course, yeah, I forgot about, and was it Tim Truman who did Grimjack? Correct me if I'm wrong on that. The creator of Grimjack?
Oh,
Tim Truman was the original artist.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I forget who. Yeah, deputy publisher. Can't remember who the original.
No, no,
I'm a deputy publisher, not a historian.
All right, I'm going to say thank you. I'm going to say Matt and John, thank you very much for the brief history of First Comics. I'm gonna move us on. So first off, I want to say thank you very much for literally sending me a hard copy of Love Town: The Long Take. I read it. We'll talk a little bit more about the uniqueness of the comic book later in the interview. But let's do this. Where can listeners follow you on social media?
They can find us on Instagram as the Yuan Twins.
Yeah,
and Twitter and Facebook as just plain Yuan Twins.
Okay.
And it's weird, just as a bit of a a warning, I guess I should say. Instagram and Twitter is where we go to be really nice people.
Okay.
Facebook is 3:00 in the morning. We've been up for 8 days straight, and we have no cares left to give. So sometimes it gets a little salty on Facebook, but yeah. So those three. I think we technically have a TikTok account. We don't use it.
Okay, all right.
No one wants to see us sing and dance.
And then let's see, and also too the website, and then also what about listeners to follow First Comics on because I know it's on Twitter. You guys got the website. People can just type in. It's the website is actually the number 1, and it's you spell out firstcomics.com. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay.
Where you can find us on Twitter, and Facebook and Instagram.
Oh, okay. All right. Now I'm gonna say, if you guys don't, before we get into the long take, um, John, I'm gonna start you off. Matt, jump in at any time. For new listeners, what is Love Town? Because you guys wrote and drew this. Um, so
Love Town is our supernatural noir series about a fictitious city, Los Amores, that is analogous to the Los Angeles of the late 1940s, early 1950s. Magic is a real thing, but rather than being like, Harry Potter or Doctor Strange, it's more akin to either a performance enhancing drug or a disease. In the latter case, it is what causes vampirism, lycanthropy, and turns people into ghouls. So you have vampires, werewolves, and ghouls, but they are the result of a disease. They are faster, stronger, meaner, but they form a distinct underclass because they eat human flesh or human tissue to survive. That's not something you drop at a dinner party and have people go, "Oh, good, what do people taste?" So they're youthful precisely because they're stronger and faster and meaner, but they're also kind of like, we don't talk about that in polite society, like Joey's cousin's friend is a vampire, and we just don't bring him up,
yeah.
And so it's very much, everything has a price, everything has a cost, and you're going to pay it one way or another.
Because, because I know John, John, you're I know John, you and Matt are both writers on the series. You, correct me for that limited series, were you, John, you were the artist on that series, correct? And then Matt did the colors,
Yes.
right?
In all of the Lovetown, the series, and then the various one shots, I do the art, and then Matt puts in the zipatone, the dot pattern that colors everything, and then he puts in the splashes of red. So I would say I'm almost, the beginner, and he finishes it. A lot of the tone and how everything plays out is not just the contrast between the blacks and the whites. There's also like where the shading happens, where the splashes of red or stuff like that. So the Matt has you should take a lot of credit for that too.
I'll tell you this: when John says that he's the beginner and I'm the finisher, I don't have a lot to do, honestly. From the beginning, this was John's idea, and he does all the work in terms of like the story, the writing. I come in and I do some second draft polishing, but not much. And then I put in the zipatone and the colors. But honestly, like even the colors, little bit of trivia. If you can find one of the Lovetown specials where it's completely black and white, that is a collector's edition, like you would not believe, because we don't have very many of them. John was like, "Can we add red like on the cover?" And I'm just being a lazy turd. I'm like, "No, black and white." And then Ken gets involved, and Ken is like, "No, I think that red is going to be a good addition to it." And I'm like that chef in Casino when Robert De Niro tells him an equal amount of blueberries in every single muffin. I'm like, I'm just going to take me? Like, we've got like a one shot, and then we have the entire first series, and then an epilogue that I now have to go through and do all this stuff on. I hate you guys. And I did 2 or 3 pages. I was like, oh, crud, you guys are right. That's so much. So yeah, like honestly, I take all of my direction from John on Lovetown because he's the one that's got the original vision for it. Occasionally add my 2 cents. But I'm going to say that for the most part, this is largely at John's direction because he draws it, he writes it. I do come in and I do the finishes, but
Mhm.
credit where credit is due, right?
Oh, all right. No, what, Matt? Thank you very much. Okay, and I'm going to say, Let's start talking about Love Town, the long take. Actually, John, I'm going to start off with you. What is this one shot special about?
Okay, so this one shot special, Love Town, the long take. So Captain Hiram Subsmore. We will get into why people call him Subs later.
Mm-hmm.
But he is the only captain on the Los Amores police force, and so he has to do things. He has to play a little loose with the law sometimes, but it's always in pursuit of justice. He is a good guy. He's just a bad good guy.
Yeah.
And in this case, he is investigating a murder with one of his detectives, Detective Connolly. But there is no body, there is no motive. They only have a suspect, and so there's no victim, no reason for this murder victim that possibly doesn't exist. And so the real mystery is, why are they there? What are they really investigating?
Yes.
And it just kind of it shows in pretty stark detail what Captain Moore is willing to do to see justice done, not necessarily enforce the law, but to justice.
That's right. So I'm going to say, so listeners, before we continue, we are not going to spoil this, and that's all we're going to pretty much. That's all we're going to talk about the story. But I mean, we'll pick on stuff here and there, and then I'm going to continue on with you, John, and Matt. Please feel free to jump in, okay? Because in this story, there's only two characters you guys focus on: Captain Hiram Subs and Connolly. You guys, do you want to talk about the characters? Because you already mentioned you're gonna go into the reason why he's called Subs.
The reason why he's called Subs is going to be a later story. It's actually going to be in another one shot. That having been said, it has been alluded that because Lovetown takes place, roughly the late 40s.
Yes.
It has been alluded to that he served in World War One. And so there is that was in Old Friends. And so that will probably be within the next one or two one shots, because our Ken was like, what the hell sort of nickname is that? Like, I'll get to it. But and then Connolly, we just wanted to kind of show, because there are several other detectives that work underneath him. Subs is the captain of the vice/organized crime unit in the downtown precinct. The other two detectives that are mainly dealt with are Detective Allie Saxon. She's the only vampire on the police force.
Yes.
And Detective Donald Regan, who and they both have their own personalities. And so I wanted to introduce a character who kind of dealt with Captain Moore on a different level, because and also to serve a purpose, but readers will find that out.
Yes. Matt, I'm going to ask you this. Oh, did you want to add something, Matt?
It's hard to talk about what is essentially a mystery without ruining anything, because
it's
how much do we give away, right?
I know, it's because it's a very good story. It is. And
remember, Stuart Gordon was telling us one of the things that he absolutely despises in screenplays is that you'll be reading a script and you get to a certain point and the scriptwriter puts in, and then the greatest gunfight in the world happens.
I'm sorry.
He was like, well, what do you do with that? And that's what we're doing now, for us, it's not, laziness. We're trying not to spoil things, but oh, trust us, it's amazing.
It's a very good story. It's and and again, listeners, um the comic book format, how they have, and like I said, we'll get to the comic book format in a minute. And literally, this is no pun intended, but how the story unfolds with the comic is very good. It really is because, um, and yeah, it really is. And like I said, I just love it. And let me I want to ask this question, and actually, let me, John. I'm going to ask, since you wrote the story, and I know, and Matt, please jump in. So, John, how did you come up with this story? Like, was there certain 1930s, 1940s movies that influenced you to come up with this story, or you know?
So I was watching this YouTube video came up,
Mm-hmm.
and it was about single take shot, single takes in
Yes.
movies. The longest ones in cinema history. It brought up was it Children of Man, or Children of Man. Was it Rope? Was one of them, and
Yes,
then
Rope.
of course Touch of Evil. And so I was
Yes,
so
yeah.
the idea. It's like, well, hold on a minute, because splash pages have only ever been used in comics to depict just a bigger picture.
Yes.
And I was like, but there are all, like in that little video, they were showing all the cheats that filmmakers would take to extend their shot. So, for example, I forgot which one it was. It might have been Rope, where they zoom in
Yes.
on a picture and then pan away, and and that's when they reloaded it, because they knew when they could put the film back in. So I was like, well, wait a minute, if that's the case, then we can actually just cheat it in comic books and just this thing, but without it's all implied movement as opposed to actual movement, because comics don't move, right?
Yes.
And so that's kind of where I got the idea. And then the story, I was just like, well, what's it going to be? And I was like thinking, it's like, well, if I put it outside, it's going to be hell on earth, because then I have to, all the background's the same, or because there's another artist, he was talking about how before he draws anything, he goes into a computer and mocks up a 3D architectural reference, the room they're going to be in, so that way he can always refer to that whenever he, and I was like, I can't do that. I'm not that's not going to happen. So I was like, put it inside. It's a lot easier to keep track of. Somewhere around here, I have the layout. Like, I have an architectural blueprint apartment. It's shaped like a reverse C, but I have it covered. But but I was like, but let's just use all those tricks to, like, change camera angles, where the camera's reloading and stuff like that.
Because I'm going to say, let's just start talking about the format of the comic, because you already talked about, in movies, like Rope is I think is one of the famous Alfred Hitchcock movies that literally the film is done in one room, one long take. And like you said, because I know they had to either zoom in on somebody's back and put the film in, but okay, keep talking, and they pull away.
Yep. That's the thing with Lovetown, is that there were a lot of times where it's like, okay, how do I cheat this? But it turns into a shadow cast on the wall, then close in on, like, a piece of furniture that then does it. In many ways, I had it easier, though. I had two sets of rough sketches to
Mhm.
try and fit together, plan it all out.
Mhm.
I think I have two sets of those.
Mhm.
One, one was, it was almost started, I think, what, Matt, about 2 years ago? Might have been 2 years ago. But I, in many ways, actually had it easy because,
Mhm.
then I just 11x17s out,
Mhm.
make sure they line up, off we go to the races. Man,
Mhm.
that is really tough.
Matt, you want to talk
Let
about?
him freaking
Matt, you want to
hilarious.
add in about that part? How it was a little tough.
Um, so the one thing that is sort of a pain is that when we had the scanner scan the images, the scanner either I think it was because the paper was trimmed like just slightly not straight
Yes.
and was just like a scintilla of an angle off, of a degree off.
Yeah.
Go in and adjust the image just so that they line up without being a pixel off.
Yeah.
Each page took about between 20 and 30 minutes to do. 27-page story. So we can do the math on that one. And then once I got them all lined up, then I had to make sure, because now the tops and the bottoms are jagged, and I've got to like trim all of that. I want to say that part of things took me a little over a week and a half to do. And anyone who knows me knows I love computer work. Fiddling with this stuff, and then like there's then there's the coloring and the toning and all of that, and all of that has to fit. And that became a lot of fun. And we haven't even gotten to the part where the printer gets involved.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, and that was the easy part. Finding a printer, we have to interject. We have to interrupt this amazing technical process with the nuts and bolts of finding a printer. We actually tried to find a printer who would print it in the so viewers, this whole thing is printed accordion style, so that you can read it normally or you can unfold it. And if you unfold it, the entire image is just shy of 15 feet long. But to find a printer who would do that took about 3.5 months.
Wow.
He contacted 4 or 5. 3 never got back to us. The first one said, I can do it. Let me crunch some numbers. Yes, your per unit price, if you order X amount, is going to be $40. And we're like, so in other words, to make this thing break even, we would have to sell each comic book for $80. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Then the second one who responded to us, like, they were really cool. They're like, let me get my team on it. We'll crunch some numbers. We'll get back to you. I'm like, great, cool. Thankfully, this guy's excited. It means it's not going to be $40 a year. And literally 5 minutes later, I get a text simply saying, go with the other guy. And I'm like, you are kidding me. And then we finally found someone that our first art director, Alex Wald, had run into at the ALA conference in Chicago. And she was like, yeah, your friend, your coworker tells me that you've got, an issue, you got a project that you want to do. And I was like, okay, I'll explain. It's a little bit hard, blah, 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 blah. And she was immediately like, oh, yeah, we can do that. I was like, really? Cool. Price going to be, a kidney? She was like, no. He came back with a unit price that was totally acceptable. We were like, all right, cool. and so we were able to find her, and contact her, her company, care of it, and But then, so with all that in mind, that was the easy part.
Because, so, and we're allowed to say this. Look at our last name, but I'm going to tell you this: Chinese parents apparently go to work for this Chinese printer who put this thing together, because they said we need PDFs. I don't know for any of you out there who have ever tried to put together a 50-foot wide PDF. It just can't. Our program, our software could handle roughly 3. So I have to put together a bunch of these, and then I've got to make they fit together.
Yes.
So I do that. I send these. I assemble the PDF. Now each PDF takes me about 8 hours to assemble, because I'm having to match the pages up and put them together according to their template that they sent me. I send them the PDF, and they send me back notes, and they're like, "No, this is wrong," and I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "Okay, look, between this page and that page at this scene, you're off like by this amount of space. You need to fix that." So I fix it. Another 16 hours that I've got to work. I send it back to them, and they're like, "No, still wrong." And I'm like, "What's wrong now?" And they're like, "Okay, you see now over here, you didn't readjust, and so now it's off by a couple of pixels." And it's just goes to show how great these printers were during this whole, because I said, "Oh, screw it, that is good enough."
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Response was literally, "No, it's not." So I'm like, oh my God. And mind you, we're at a convention.
Yes.
So I'm with my laptop trying to do all this stuff.
Oh God.
John is like taking care of the booth with the other creators that were there, and I like just ignore things and get it done, and finally get it to a point. It was about, I want to say, 46 hours, man hours of getting the PDFs in a printable format. And they're like, okay, now it's good enough. And we weren't expecting it, but we get back to our place from Vegas. And mind you, that's a span of like 2 days, over a, and there is a proof waiting for us. And we're like, holy cow, this, okay, you guys are amazing.
Yeah.
And we unfold that sucker, and we're looking, and it is spot on. It's not a pixel off. It is amazing. And so, like I said, these people at the printers were hyper professional. It was so great. Like, I was ready to just sit there and say, nope, that's good enough. And they would let me do that. And so really hats off to them. They're just amazing. And the problem, when you see it, and we've got videos on YouTube, we've got pictures on Instagram, it will blow your mind. But when you get a clip, realize how precise they got it, it's like, oh my goodness, this is just magic.
It sounds like these printers want to make sure you guys present, have this comic top notch. They didn't want to go, I know you're going to go, it's 1 pixel off, who cares? But they're going, no, if you guys are going to sell this, if you guys want to show what you guys can do, we want to make sure it is the best.
Oh yeah.
Top notch.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and also I think that they knew, and I'm not trying to sound too full of ourselves here, but I think they knew that it was something new.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, we have a story about that. So I don't know how new it was going to be, but apparently because I was like, certainly someone's done this before. Apparently not.
Yeah, no, yeah.
The really funny thing is that at San Diego Comic-Con, we have preview copies for sale.
Yes.
And one of our buddies comes up and he's like, okay, I got to see this book. And he takes a look at it, tells us, DC tried this before. And we're like, really?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, they tried. They tried it with Nightwing, but their prototypes kept falling apart. They get prototypes to stick together. And so they just printed it as a regular comic book. Just a series of double splash. And I was like, oh, really? And he's like, yeah, my buddy, like, I forgot what his friend does for DC, but he was like, yeah, he was telling about it when I was telling him about it. Well, that's cool. So we, that's neat. And then about an hour and a half, 2 hours later, guy comes up, got a badge, professional, I think exhibitor badge with exhibitor. And he's like, that's the book I'm looking for. And we're like, oh, Love Time, cool, yeah, here you go. And he takes a look at it, and Matt asks, so, who do you work for?
Yeah.
And he's like, DC. We're like, oh, Nick. Yeah, my boss sent me over here to see how it works. He bought a copy.
So, John,
it was pretty cool.
That's amazing. So, I'm sorry, John, because you mentioned DC was trying to do. So, which comic book were they trying to do this long accordion format? What comic book was it?
It was Nightwing, apparently.
Oh, it's a Nightwing. Oh.
Yeah. So there's a story out there where it's just a bunch of splash pages that apparently interconnect, but they weren't able to figure out how to,
to make it like a long accordion.
Yeah, the format really kind of stymied them. Apparently, it just kept on ripping or falling apart or whatever. But we're like, oh yeah, no, I don't know how we did it, but we beat them to the punch.
Oh my God, because I keep thinking, because I kept thinking when I heard about this, the long take, I kept trying to think in the back of my mind, like, has any other publisher, because I've been reading comics for, from the late 70s. I'm just trying to remember, like, has any publisher ever done anything this long? Because I think the closest may have been, I think it was, and someone's going to yell out there, no, it's not. I think it was like the Death of Superman, the final issue, where I think there was like, they could do the 3-page. There was like, I think the 3rd page you could fold out to see the complete destruction and how Lois,
Yeah, I think. Well, I know. I don't know of anyone who has done it internally.
Yeah.
External covers. Obviously, there's what started as John Byrne Official Handbook of the Marvel Universe,
That's right. Yeah.
where he had, but then he quit, and so a lot of them didn't match up afterwards, because like I think there's one where like there's someone flying in the background, and then like the next issue, their front half or the back half isn't there. It's like, because it's so hard to keep it all straight. But and it was like, I forget how many volumes, but that was a cover. But I mean, that in the same vein, I would say.
Yeah, because it was always showing. Yeah, because that's the thing I loved about those the Marvel Handbook. It's like everyone's always wearing, and it always looked like, yeah, if you put these covers together, it's gonna make this huge, like, the complete Marvel universe. That's right. But also too, when you're talking about John Byrne, he was also the one that also did. I think he was the first writer artist that did the landscape issue with the Fantastic Four. So he also played around with how to tell story formats too as well. But
we were just very, very happy that Ken signed off on this, because anyone else like, what? But Ken is always about innovation and create, like, so when we brought it up to him, we're like, hey, we have this plan. A lot of, I have a feeling a lot of editors and publishers would sit there and say, okay, well, how much is this going to cost?
Yeah. Yes.
Or, how are you going to overcome all these technical hurdles? Because one of the technical Matt didn't bring up was the fact that the zipatone, if you do it, and the technical aspects of it escape me, but if you do it one way, they actually wind up being little crosses as opposed to little circles, and it looks really bad when you print it. And so that's another thing that he had to like redo. And so like, but Ken just simply went, okay, cool. It's all for it, and then when we showed it to him, he's like, oh wow, this is great. So we're very grateful that Ken was like, not like, no, that's too radical, don't do it.
Yeah.
There are actually some other people who are like, well, I don't really see the point. This other, like, and they brought up like, oh, this other creator did it, and it's like, but it was like a handmade, a small indie like zine, that had a print run of like 10.
Yeah, and it's just
doesn't really count. Thank God you're not my publisher.
yeah.
Yeah.
No. Matt, Matt, are you still there?
Sure. I just cut the video off because I think that might help with the bandwidth and the stuttering in the audio.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm going to say, Matt, do you want to add, because it sounded like, like you guys, John, I know you mentioned like, John, like you mentioned that, you're the beginner and Matt is the finisher. Matt, it sounded like you really brought everything together. Just what you're.
Yeah, but again, I don't have to think too much because John laid out the vision for it, right? So mine is just to literally, I was just putting it together. And as much fun as that was, there was not a lot of deep thinking going on. John mentioned the zipatone.
Yes.
And this is probably a shortcoming on my part, but it's easier for me to like paint the area with a certain color, grayscale it, and then throw the zipatone filter over it. There is white and say this many dots per inch, these many lines per inch, and you can get the effect, but it's a lot more work, which I don't do. But then the printer will sit there and say, okay, that gray isn't black and white. There's no white ink. So now, and it's like, well, it doesn't matter. We're printing in color anyway. We've got the red, so who gives a crap? And so, but in certain circumstances, it could come back to bite us. Like if we were wanting to do a black and white book, all of a sudden I've got to do a different type of tone. But yeah, no, I mean, it was just a lot of methodical technical work on my part, which is, I will take that any day over some like hardcore creative stuff. Because honestly, like when you're trying to make a scene fit, get something said in 2 pages instead of 6, or 6 instead of 2. That level of thinking is going to just put you to sleep. It's exhausting. So yeah, like I mean, it sounds like I did a lot of work, and certainly it was hard work, but it wasn't especially like taxing. It was just boring and long.
It was, in other words, it was challenging.
It was, yeah. It was, it was homework, but again, because John had written and drawn such an intriguing story, never I was never resentful for having to work, to basically do that sort of drudge work, right?
Mm.
Because there and I'm doing this, and I get to stop,
Mm-hmm.
look at this art, and read this book again. So
Yeah.
it's not all that bad, I just
Mm-hmm.
I'm working towards. This is what I'm working for, and it's great,
Mm-hmm.
So do it now. If it had been somebody else's book that was not as interesting, I'd be like, cuss, cuss,
Mm-hmm.
cuss. No, like I'm proud of the work that we've done on this. It's
Yes.
fascinating that we were able to pull it all together. Like there were times when it was like, this may not happen.
Mm-hmm. 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 But I'm gonna say because now I can tell people now Matt and John, I can tell you guys because when I read this, I didn't read excuse me. I didn't read it in a comic book style. I pulled out, I opened it up to 15 pages. I laid it on the floor. I had to find someplace in my house where it's going to be long enough where I could pull it out and look. And I read it. It was the story. Oh, we are not going to spoil it. The story is very good. I love it how you guys are moving around in the room and how it and it's and you guys did an amazing feat of literally doing literally quote unquote a one shot comic book. It's great. It really is. Um, the other thing that's that's really good, and I'm gonna say, um, is because you know what it kind of reminds me of? Like those ancient scrolls. Because back then, right?
Oh,
Because you had one long piece of paper you had to unscroll to either read something, and it basically told one story, you know.
yeah, yeah. That was actually a that was an option that we had considered. We actually have a prototype of it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think it's only because the entire book is 27 pages long. I think at the time we only had maybe 15 of the pages ready,
Mm-hmm.
but wanted to see how it would look. And so we got someone to print it out on vinyl. It was
Uh-huh.
essentially a small banner that was shaped,
Oh
the
yeah.
dimension. Um, and that was an option, but then we were like, okay, how do we package it?
Yes.
Give it a color, or how do we keep it together?
Yeah.
Um, Stuff. I mean, like it was beautiful, but the problem with it is that it was heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Because the banner is not going to be light, and 15 feet of it is just it gets weighty. And then secondly, like the its girth rolled up was kind of weird, and so it's like, are we going to get poster tubes?
Yeah.
How do we do this? And so that fell by the wayside. But that's another prototype we have lying around. We have like I think 3 prototypes that were printed out, and one's a vinyl banner, and 2 of them are paper copies.
Oh. So yeah. I'm sorry because are you guys okay for time? Because I know we are going over. Are you guys okay on time? Or do you guys
We're good.
you guys are okay? Okay. But it's because there's a couple things I want to talk about. And actually, Matt, actually, John, I want to start off with you first because um the other thing I really love, um the thing I really love about the story, um, John, your art style had sort of the Frank Miller Sin City vibe to it. And Matt, the black and white and the reds added to that. That's what. Now I'm going to be honest. I've never read Sin City. I flipped through it. I've been meaning to pick one of those trades up, but it just had that nice vibe to it. You know,
Thank you. Yeah. Honestly, I'd be lying if I said there was no Frank Miller influence. I mean, like, he's a friggin' genius, you know.
Mhm.
But I would actually say it was less Sin City and
Yes.
probably more of his Daredevil, mainly
Oh,
because because his Daredevil work, especially with David Mazzucchelli, just had such an
oh God.
atmosphere. You know, the atmosphere to it was like just so amazing that it's hard not to harken back to that.
Yes.
But then another creator that I actually think is probably a little bit more at the forefront of my mind was actually Matt Wagner.
Oh yeah.
Because my God, his work for Grendel, Batman,
Yes.
are amazing. Like and I think probably Matt Wagner deserves a bit more credit than Frank Miller. All the Frank Millers are very very talented and amazing. I
Yes.
think that Wagner is certainly the one that comes most to my mind.
Mhm. And then, and listeners, even though, it's black and white and red, um, Matt, I love how you put in the reds in certain scenes. It works, you know. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that, or, yeah.
So as far as the influences of that go, um, I actually was influenced by a a a source that many people would maybe not think of.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Chuck Jones. Um,
Who?
Jones. Bugs Bunny. Um, Chuck Jones was talking about what's opera done, and the scene where Elmer Fudd is just going nuts and throwing lightning bolts, and it's like this weird palette of just like red, purple,
Uh-huh.
and the paint department was like, "Have you lost your mind?"
Mm-hmm.
No, like that's what I want. I want it to be a very sort of jarring, palette to make the scene stand out.
It is, yes.
I of course am not working with purples and blues and stuff like that. Just
Mm-hmm.
red,
Yes.
where subs is underlit and you see the background is just turned red, and like there's a scene where the whole background turns red.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's where I sort of drew the inspiration from, was because it's a very important scene, and I wanted the color to reflect that. And so even with a limited palette, um, there's an opportunity to add to it with um. So yeah, Chuck Jones was my inspiration for Lovetown.
That's pretty cool that Chuck Jones from Bugs Bunny, and like you said, the scene with Elmer Fudd, throwing lightning bolts. That's great for the inspiration because I love because yes, because there, like you said, there's a few key scenes where the red is in the background and it's like it really makes the black and white really stand out. It's great. You know. Oh. Um, let's see. Um, actually, Matt, I'm going to ask you first, and then John, please feel free because already, John, you already mentioned that you guys have taken this to some of the conventions and so forth. What were some of the we already talked about how DC was very impressed. What about fan reaction or anything from other creators? What were their reactions when you guys took it to different, if you guys were able to take it to different conventions?
So the fan reaction will our pitch is, hey, let me show you something cool. Like I get never seen anything like
Yes.
it. We start pulling the pages back like a normal comic book, right? We're just flipping through,
Yes.
and we series of 27 splash pages, and you can already see their mental eyes rolling back up into their head because they're like, yeah, splash pages have been done.
Yeah.
And then we pull it out, and they just go, oh, and they're like, I was not expecting that. And we're like, I told you I was going to show you something you've never seen. So it's always really fun. Like, it's fun to see that. And yeah, it follows that pattern, I want to say 9 out of 10 times. And then the 10th out of 10, you get people who are like, they're paying a little bit more attention. So they're sort of like, why does that page look weird?
Mm-hmm.
Issue, what's going on? And then you pull it out and it clicks, and they're like, oh, it's still the magic trick effect. They still go, oh, that is so cool. But they were already halfway there, you know? So everyone's very pleasantly surprised.
This is so cool. Yes, that's pretty cool. Um, Off the cuff questions already, like, you know, we already talked about how DC came to your guys' table and picked up a copy. Do you guys have any like standout moments where a creator comes, hey, I heard you guys have this long comic book. Let me take a look. What is this? Did you guys had any creators come up and take a look at the comic book? Go, holy cow!
um, Dude, yes, we did. Okay, I am horrible with names.
Mm-hmm.
It was faces, but I'm terrible with names. And yes, there was a creator who was like, "Oh my god, how did you do this?" And uh, I have to think back, remember who it is because and this is embarrassing because it's someone that I was like, "Oh, I love his stuff," right?
Yeah.
So now I'm just like, everyone's gonna ask, "Well, how much do you love his stuff if you don't know?"
No, no.
Old, leave me alone. We've had a few of the so the Philbot brothers I know want to do one too, and I'm like, well, you better be prepared to get them PDFs together because I'm not doing it for you.
Oh my God! Because can you, Matt? I'm going to say is I cannot imagine, and I'm jokingly saying, I cannot imagine within the next year you're going to be getting calls from, wait, wait, is this really Tom King? So wait, you want to do this, and you're asking me how I did it, and you're going to ask me how if I can do it, you know? You're going to be getting like at least 5 or 6 calls within the next year going, hey, how did you do this? And hey, can you show me, you know?
They want to pay 2 months rent for the hours I'm going to put in. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, but like I said, it's amazing because Matt, you know, like you said, it's like um and like how you talked about the printer. Again, I'm still amazed that the printer wanted to make sure you guys got the bet, you know, this was top notch. That you guys want to make that what you guys are going to publish is going to be top notch, and it's because they know how they saw the importance of the challenge of this, the uniqueness of this. They wanted to not only because they wanted to make everybody look good, not only for their publishing, you know, their printing company, but also you guys too, and also First Publishing too. You know,
Yeah, no, they really were just the absolute best.
you know.
I mean, at one point when I was on the convention floor,
Yes.
I had been working so long the battery was dying.
Oh God.
When we saw the finished product, we have nothing but the utmost respect gratitude for their work. I mean, like, I can only imagine, having to put this together physically,
Mm-hmm.
because I move something on a computer tablet and it stays moved, right? It just sits there.
Yeah.
But something together, whether by hand or machine, I got to make sure that that lines up, right?
Yes.
I don't know how hard they work. I know it was a lot and must have been, but oh my god! Like, again, hats off, hats off.
Yes. No, but the other thing too, I'm going to say is hats off to all of you guys. I mean, John, for you to come up with this idea, you know, Matt, for you to, to, you know, um, you know, to literally logistically try to work with the printers and so forth. And also too, we also have to give credit to Ken to say, yeah, let's do it.
Totally great. I totally agree. Like, Ken has always had an eye for like just new things,
Yes.
and he doesn't go away from it. Like, there are a lot of people, like, they'll find something to latch onto and they'll treat it like a religion.
Mm-hmm.
And because they will stick to dogma.
Yes.
They will say, I'm minded, I'm all for science, I'm all for art or whatever, but they encounter something that they don't know how to react, and they will react with fear, anger, or hatred.
Mm-hmm.
Pan is one of those few people who sits there and says, I am looking for something new,
Yes.
find something new, and is like, cool, let's do it. Like, he very much is, does, walks the walk
Mm-hmm.
and talk.
Mm-hmm.
So we we have any complaints about him as a boss, they're trivial compared
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
the things that we love about him as a boss.
Yes. Yes. But I think the other thing, but what's also good with Ken too, and for you know you guys too, is that this is a unique comic, how the unique format is. But the thing is, you guys want to make sure that there's a strong story to it. That's the key thing. It's not just, okay, we're just going to show this quote unquote, this unbelievable, fight scene that no one has ever seen before. And people are going, okay, yeah, it was great. And they put it away when they never, but like for me to read the story, and I'm kind of, oh my God, it just feels like, it's a great crime noir story. It has the little bit of touch of almost the flavor of Frank Miller, and I know you said it's not Sin City's influence, but it kind of sort of gives me that flavor of a little bit of Frank Miller's Sin City, and it's a great story. It is. It's a very good story. Um, sorry, because I want to try to because I don't want to keep you guys too long. I've kept you guys over. Um, John, I'm going to start off with you, and Matt, chime in. Will we see any more stories? Well, like you mentioned, that there's going to be at least one or at least a couple more.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I think I have two more. The series outline. I have like two more, possibly three more one shots,
Okay.
and 6-part series, and then another, probably a couple of one shots, and then but I have 3 one shots prepared, outlined.
Mm-hmm.
I have a 6-issue series outlined, and then another 5 to 6 issue story arc, kind of like gestating right
Mm-hmm.
now.
Yes.
But no, I've got a ton of stories for it. In fact, like, I have like just jotted down ideas, and then like discarded them and revisited them so many. I mean, I probably have like a stack of notes about this thick
Mm-hmm.
of
Yeah.
things I'm not using yet.
Mm-hmm. Matt, I'm going to ask, do you want to add anything into what John, like, are you along for the rise? Like, or did John talk to you about some of these stories and you're going, yeah, let's do these?
We discuss storylines and story ideas all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say this: there's a habit that that John has that just drives me insane, and that is sometimes he will start to draw on something, and he'll get like maybe I want to say one, sometimes 4 pages,
Mm-hmm.
sort of sit back and destroy it, and I'm like, what are you doing, man? And
Mm-hmm.
he's like, it sounded better than it's turning out, or I've got a better idea for the way it needs to go, or anything, and he just ditches it. Like, we've got, I want to say, 11 to 12 pages of like story that they're not going anywhere because
Mm-hmm.
he's like, I've got a new idea for this character, or something like that. And so it just drives me nuts because in addition to all the stories that I'm excited to see happen,
Yes.
now he's not going to tell, and I'm still excited.
Oh,
So there's a lot of Lovetown to come, and
okay.
very
All right.
exciting.
All right. Now, now, listeners, because we're going to put this up probably within the next couple weeks, but so listeners can order this issue of Lovetown. Oh, you know what I wanted to ask you guys, and one of you guys can chime in. The title, The Long Take.
Mhm.
How did you guys, how did you guys come up with that title? And two, is there a double meaning to the title? Because we've already
Yeah,
talked about 15, it's almost 15 feet.
yeah,
So,
yeah. There's definitely a double meaning to it. Um, the first meaning will be clear. I don't want to spoil anything for the
yes.
story. But the first meaning will be clear when people read it. The second one is it's the technical term for a tracking shot, a single shot. It's called a long take. Uh,
Oh.
yeah.
Mhm.
So thank you, film school terminology. You gave because titles are Matt and I have a really hard time with titles,
Mhm.
and this one was actually relatively easy because I'm like, what do we call it? I'm like, oh wait a minute, that works. It works. It
It
works.
does. Yeah. Okay. All right. Matt, I'm going to ask you want to add anything to that, to the title or anything, or did you guys bounce around titles or,
No, no, John, like I said, had this pretty well laid out. This was one of the Lovetown stories where I really had minimal input
Mhm.
in the story and the narrative of it all.
Mhm.
Because John has been in love with film noir since forever,
Mhm.
and so when he got this idea, he immediately knew he had his vision laid out for it almost.
Yes.
Um, I think that we bounced around some dialogue ideas, and that's really about it. He he really charged hard into this from the very beginning. There were times where I was like, John didn't. he was knew this was going to happen, and so and it has. We're
Mhm.
very, very.
That is great. I wanted to ask a couple more questions, but like I said, I don't want to take up too much of your time. So two more questions. Actually, Matt, I'm going to start off with you, and John, just jump in. Um, what are your next convention or store appearances for the rest of the year?
We are going to be at the LA Comic Con,
Mhm.
uh, October,
Okay.
and don't have any store signings concrete yet, but we're working on a few. It'll probably be sometime in September, later September.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. That's pretty cool. And so I'm just going to ask, so I know you said the LA Comic Con is going to be in October. Is it going to be roughly around the time when the comic is released?
I think
Yeah,
it'll be the week before. Yeah,
Okay.
but yeah, it'll be ready to it'll be out at the distributor by then.
Ah, okay. All right. Um, John, I'm gonna start this. I'm the last question. John, I'm gonna start off with you and Matt. Any closing words to our listeners?
Yeah, so we we hope that you guys will pick up Lovetown: The Long Take. It is. I did not know how much how cool it was going to be until I was holding it in my hands. You know, I had this idea, but you know, the printer did a great job. Matt did a great job. You know, making it all work and stuff like that. It is a. I am proud. We're very proud of it, and um, you know, it helps support us. It helps support your local comic shop, which is actually even more important.
Mm-hmm.
Without them, we have no have no audience.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you pick up our book, or you know, Spider-Man or Batman
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, just support your local comic shop. They do this. All the folks that we have met, they do it because they have a passion for comic books.
Mm-hmm.
And that deserves to be rewarded. So please stop by your local comic shop and pick up a book or two, you know, as much as you can, because you know they provide, I believe, a valuable cultural and artistic service.
Yes. Matt, do you want
Uh,
to? Mm-hmm.
I would just like to add that for all you listeners out there, you probably already know this, but Jason is the nicest guy in comics. So whenever he does a podcast, give it a listen. Follow him on Twitter. Tell your friends who make books, because when it comes to the real deal, um, he truly loves comics. He is a really on Twitter. Who's a nice guy on Twitter, right? Jason, bright spot on that dumpster fire of a platform. So yeah, that's what I would like to add, because you're always so great when we talk with you. You know, we're very happy to call you friend, and it's just nice to have someone out there who's not like a toxic gatekeeper, like, you know, oh, you don't like what I like, so forget you. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just very kind and pleasant and supportive, and there needs to be more of that, not just on Twitter, everywhere.
Yes.
But I refuse to call it that letter of the alphabet, but just
Yes.
dumb. But yeah, yeah. So yeah, give Jason your support and follow him on Twitter, because he's a great guy. And if you don't, we can't be.
Matt, thank you very much. Just thank you very much for your kind words. I'm going to be. I try my best to be nice on Twitter. Well, you know, but thank you very much. Thank you. Um, Matt and John, mahalo. Just thank you for giving me another opportunity to talk to you guys. I always have, you know, listeners, I have fun talking to them. I always tell them, okay, this interview is going to be an hour. We're just going to, and then it goes into like an hour and a half to 2 hours, because we're just having fun talking about stuff.
Man, you know, you can't cut that short. You know, that's like, you know, eating half a hot dog,
Yeah.
or you know,
Yeah.
you know, why would you do that? You know, or those ice cream drumsticks. You know,
Oh
not
God, yes.
that little tiny bottom nub filled with
Yes.
chocolate. You do that. You can't stop short. That's just
Oh my God, thank you guys. And I'm gonna say thank you very much for making comics. Like you know, you know, listeners, I mean, you know, just yeah, thank you very much for making comics. And I wish you guys all the success for Love Town, the long take. Now, listeners, this is an amazing one shot from First Comics. It's gonna come out on October 16th. Ask your comic shops to order you a copy, or go to the First Comics website and, you know, pre-order your copy, you know, through them. And listen, if you are a new comic book reader or a lifelong comic book reader, and you love crime noir stories, please check out Love Town: The Long Take. I love this story, you know, and you know, and I love the format of this comic. It like Matt and John said, there's two. You can do this two ways. You can still open and read it like a regular comic book, or you also have the option of literally opening up to almost 15 feet and literally read the panels. And it's like I said, the story is very good. It's a very good story. I love the artwork. I love the black and white because it gives that nice, the nice 1930s, 1940s noir. But I also love that splash of red when it comes out to make it certain scenes dramatic. It's very good. Like I said, again, you guys have done a you guys have done a great job at First Comics. Doing putting this you guys have done an amazing work putting this comic book together. We also have to give the printer a shout out because they're the ones that kept pushing you guys, going, no, we cannot settle for less. And I'm glad that they kept pushing you guys to it. It was perfect.
And if you want to, you viewers, listeners out there, if you want to check out what Jason is talking about in terms of unfolding it, we do have a video for that. It's on YouTube. Just check out the First Comics YouTube channel. It's the second video we have printed or posted, and it'll show you what we're talking about.
All right. John, thank you for that. And I want to thank Drew, the co-host of Comics for Fun and Profit, for putting this episode together. Drew, thank you very much for all your hard work behind the scenes. And if you are a new listener, please check out new episodes of Comics for Fun and Profit that comes out every Saturday. And I want to thank you, the listeners. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening to this episode. Until next time, guys. Aloha.
Hello.
Our LCS is Cowabunga Comics, Lake Country, Wisconsin's best pop culture destination for new comics, back issues, gaming, retro video games, vinyl, and figures. Give them a call, 262-569-9999. Check them out online at cowabungacomics.com or follow them on Twitter at Incredicow. They are our LCS, and we utilize their deep discount mail order service to bring Oconomowoc, Wisconsin closer to us. They'll take care of you. Tell them Drew and Kyle sent you. Say hi to Eric and James from us. If you need an LCS, you can't go wrong with Cowabunga Comics.